if you want to book the cheapest airplane tickets, there's like one strategy that I feel like a lot of people don't know about already, where you can look for airports that I call like flight hubs. But when you start to go for longer distances, so like I flew from Minnesota all the way to India for the start of this trip, it starts to become harder to find flight hubs between each other. And so that's one of the agents that I've made is how do you find the cities that are linked with each other the cheapest, where you can buy like multiple tickets going around the world for way cheaper. So, I mean, I flew from the US all the way to India for like $370. So that was a freaking crazy deal that, it was not, and it would have been very hard to just find only with Google Flights.
Welcome to Storypreneurs podcast. Today, we've got an incredible guest, Alex Paige. Alex's travel adventures are nothing short of legendary, packed with crazy stories and hidden gems he's found using AI. We'll share his secrets on creating great content on the go and his unique travel mindset that encourages everyone to step out of their comfort zone. Plus, we'll dive into the debate on personal versus professional growth and how Alex is challenging the norms. He joins us today. Welcome to the show, Alex. Glad to have you here.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to chat, and I think we have a lot of interesting travel things to talk about. So
I know. You know what? I saw your Instagram, and I was like, I have to have you on this podcast. I know we've met personally as well. You've told me about your crazy travel stories. You've told me about how you've traveled Latin America for less than what was it? Is it $10,000 or something? Was it less than that?
yeah, last year of travel, like total for a year, was $9,200 for the travel expenses only. Yeah, which is insane, insanely low.
Which is honestly, there's so many things I want to cover, so let's just dive into it. But before we do, I let's just start on your why. How come you are where you are, and what made you get here?
I started traveling about a year ago, like fully, and I wasn't sure where it would take me. Like I always have liked doing things outside of my comfort zone. Like that's been kind of a staple of the last 4 or 5 years, really. I've liked doing interesting things, and I think I found out over the last year or so that travel is like one of the best ways that I have been forcing myself into new situations that I'm like learning so much from. That after like I just graduated from school the year prior, from university in Wisconsin, and then I knew it was like a path that I could go down, so I decided to try it for 4 months in South America. And then that's when I had the realization that like, yeah, this is definitely something I want to keep doing in different regions. And then right now I'm on my second like major trip in Asia for like I think it's been 5 months now, which is crazy. But yeah, so that it's been a year. It's going to be a lot longer than a year, but I think it's personally like been a really interesting journey for I don't know, like I've learned so much and I definitely want to keep doing it and share the feelings that I've had like I don't know, it was so good for me like personally to do what I'm doing, and now like I definitely want to share that, and I've been making videos about doing that.
Okay, so how do you begin to plan things? How do you decide, okay, this is where I want to go, this is what I'm going to do, and you also create content, which is crazy. So talk to me about that.
So yeah, planning. I actually like I'm kind of a planning nerd. I don't know if you know this. I love maps. Like I don't know, I'm kind of obsessed with maps. So but I wasn't really that way last year. And so when I planned my first trip, I had no idea what I was doing at all. And I kind of was just like I booked a one-way flight and it was like, okay, I did it. Like I'm going. And then everything else hit me like what do I do? To like actually figure out where I'm going to stay, what everything that I'm going to do. And I started in Dominican Republic was my first like country of solo travel, which if you've traveled actually the real Dominican Republic that's not resorts, it is a crazy place to visit. And I say that just because like there's not that much tourist infrastructure. Everything's kind of crazy. It's not the most safe place in Santo Domingo. So I don't know. It kind of hit me when I was there. And then I kind of, over the past year, I've developed a lot of different, like, really good strategies for finding really good flights, finding what I want to be doing, whose advice I'm taking on where to go. Like, that's really important. But honestly, so now, I now basically, if you ask me to plan a trip tomorrow, which I'm continuously planning, like all the whole time I'm traveling, I always just like I'm looking stuff up to do in my next cities. But for the first step for me now, I've been traveling with AI assistants that I made, and so that's been like an amazing first step to find out information really fast about a place, and that way like I can do my own narrow research after that. So yeah, that's my travel process now, if you ask me that. But
Yes. Okay. So talk to me about AI. Because do you know what? In my in my last episode, I interviewed an AI researcher, Dr. Daniel Duma, and we talked about AI all the time, and how AI is changing the world. And now we're talking about here how it can help you, even in your travels. So talk to me about how you use AI. You said you program it, and then it does it. So do you use like a ready bot, or do you program it yourself, or just walk me through the process?
so what I do is not that complicated. Like I'm trying to develop into proper like apps and stuff, but right now what I do is inside of ChatGPT, most people don't know that you can actually make like custom assistants in there with their own knowledge base. So yeah, they're called custom GPTs. They've been out for a long time, but they're not that popular. But I found that I have like six or seven different ones for travel for different like use cases I found that are really good. But the ones that I think is probably the most valuable is one that knows me. So I have an assistant named Brad, who's the best route and adventure director. And so basically, Brad knows everything, like all the ways that I like to travel. And so if you this is a good reason to have one as well. So if you ever tried traveling with somebody long term, usually there's so many factors that something doesn't work. Like if you're going to travel with someone for like more than a month or two, then things start adding up, and it kind of just shows like there's so many little factors that make travel like really hard to plan with other people. And like there's so many individual things that you have preferences about that you don't even realize. So I made a huge list and had Brad like told Brad everything about the way I like to travel. And then now when I do research, it's just directly inside of ChatGPT. I can ask Brad questions and say like, "Hey, I'm in Mongolia right now." So I'm like, "Hey, I'm going to go to Mongolia next month and I want to do things that like tell me what things I should do." And since he already knows everything that I like to be doing, he knows that I want to be doing adventures that are not like typical adventures. Then the research is so fast, and I found that it's like so specific to me already that it's an amazing point to like jump off for like time saving. So that's my whole process to do it. Yeah.
So how long does it take you to plan your next trip, and how do you do it?
I feel like right now I use Brad for the main like kind of general stuff, but then I'm using like a lot of different other assistants. So I have one for finding like cities to fly between. That one's really good. I have one for route planning. So like which cities I'm gonna go in between next and like how I'm gonna get between them. That's been really helpful because I mean when you're traveling, you don't really have like I think there's maybe one website called Rome to Rio that's like kind of glitchy of like, oh, there's like buses and trains between these cities, but I've never found that it works very well. And so I don't know if you've used it.
Same.
Yeah. So this is like a major problem when you say, okay, I want to go from here, like here across the country. Usually I love traveling overland, like so you can really see the country. So I feel like flying, you kind of you skip over a lot of stuff. And so when you're going via land, like you can really see things change, even though it involves some long like bus hours or car hours or train hours. But I kind of like it, and so I know that usually I try and go overland. So like I ask my route planner, hey, I need to go through like this region. I was just doing it in India, and that was great. India has all sorts of trains, and it's so confusing to find the train schedules everywhere, or like the routes even. Like how to even find Indian trains go. It's so hard. And so then I asked it, and it's so good at deciphering things and being like, oh yeah, there is a train. And just even knowing that there is a train to go find the website to go book it on is like such a crazy superpower. Um, so yeah, I don't know. It takes some time, but it's like so much faster than if I was just doing this randomly and like I don't know.
Yeah, no, it sounds better, right? It just takes out all the chaos out of the planning and all the stress. Because I personally, I'm bad at planning. I'm just a very spontaneous person, but then when I get there, I find that unless I know where I'm going or I've done a little bit of research beforehand, I find that it just becomes very very stressful for me because then I have to think about what my next steps are and so on and so forth. But sounds like these AI assistants can be the next, game changer for a lot of people, especially like people who don't know the language. I can imagine like you've been to India and it's such a dynamic, vibrant, sometimes confusing place because there's so many things happening at the same time and you trying to find schedules and trying to line up and trying to ask questions and you just also end up wasting a lot of time because maybe people don't speak English that well. Maybe they give you wrong information or whatever, right? Maybe they give you information but you missed the train. So it sounds like AI is like a great way to efficiently plan your travels.
I feel like most people are not travel planners and have no desire to be planning like big trips, or or it's just confusing. And then it's like really freaking scary when you show up somewhere and you're like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just showing up here. And then like I have no plans and I'm in a foreign country where they don't speak my language and then it's a nightmare. So I feel like I love the most like crazy adventure travel, and using AI to do this is like makes things so much easier where I feel confident to go do a crazy adventure in somewhere that I don't know about. And I think that's probably the greatest strength of like all of this, that it will hopefully encourage more people to go places that usually like they wouldn't without the confidence of knowing things like that are there. So
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I just want to say that too.
I think, yeah, I think for me the biggest cultural shock wasn't when I went to China. I know we talked about this before this call, and for me, because they live in their own little bubble, right? They don't use any Western apps, they don't use any Western cards, and they have the censorship called the Great Firewall of China, right? Which means that, right? Which
Yeah,
is
they
which is
do. They
crazy
do.
because the internet internet is available but then it's super censored and then even if you use VPN they have this great firewall that slows everything down to 2 megabits per second which you can't even load one page on the website. It's crazy and you can't use things like Facebook or Instagram or WhatsApp. Google Maps doesn't work, right? So for me, that was the biggest shock when I was traveling because I've never experienced like me as a English speaker. I have great privilege and Spanish as well. I have a great privilege to probably get around half the world without any
Yeah.
troubles. But then when you go to like a bubble like that, then what do you do? Right, but fortunately, I had a friend who was out there who helped me prep for this trip. I think for me that was one of the scariest things. And probably had I had looked into AI, I would have, it would have been different. I mean, I went, I enjoyed it, but you have this, you make these trips all the time, and I'm curious to know. I mean, I guess a part of you, and forgive me for assuming, a part of you is doing this because you want to challenge yourself. Am I getting this right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
And you go to all these places and you've developed what I can imagine a huge ball of confidence.
I'll have some. I was just in China as well, and it was just as humbling as you say. Like, this is how I would describe the experience. The first 3 days, it was so humbling. I was like, oh my God, I don't know where I'm going. My Google Maps doesn't work. Like, I couldn't use my maps. Like, I didn't even know where to go. I felt scared leaving the hostel the first day. So this is why, I had to do quite a bit of pre-planning for China. But yeah, I am doing this all the time. And like, yeah, what was your question?
Yeah, no, I was just gonna ask you around that. I was just gonna ask you like, how do you find these experiences? When you go into those countries and they don't speak the language, nothing that you're so accustomed to works, and how do you manage that? How do you? Are there any tricks to kind of mentally prepare you?
This is a good question. I kind of prepare for like remote travel in a few different ways that really helps me, especially if I don't speak the language in a place like China or Laos spoke very little English. And I was just doing some adventures there in like really the most northern part of Laos on the border with China. That was this is some of the hardest travel when you can't speak the language and you don't know what's going on. So I have a few different tricks that I've been using, but one of it is like the first thing is, can you actually do the route that you're planning on? So I usually do some research before. I don't book very much in advance, but I will try and research like, hey, is it possible to go between these cities relatively cheaply? And like, is there buses that are often, or you know, like that's probably the first step is it possible, is it all right? And because otherwise the worst thing that can happen is like you get to a city and then it's like, oh, twice there's buses twice a week, and then you're stuck there and you're like, oh man, this is which has happened to me. So I that's probably the first thing, like, is it possible? And then the second is like all the logistics of, if they're speaking a different language, I have Google Translate. That's you download the languages. It's not too bad. But then like I think there's a number, I don't know who came up with this, but that 70% of communication is like non-verbal. So how are you acting, and like hand movements, kind of like a weird game of charades that's happened in some places. I when I was in Laos doing those adventures in northern Laos, I was at a restaurant and like they didn't even have menus, and so they're they're like, okay, what do you want? Everyone just orders, like they just know what to order, and then that was a new challenge for me. Like there's not even pictures, like you don't even or like things to read off. So I think in that case, then you just kind of have to make things happen, and usually I found that people have always like the best intentions, especially if you're visiting places that are not traveled well. Like they're always curious about, why are you here? Like what are you doing here? And they're almost every experience I've had, people are so nice and like they want to help you. So if you go with that mindset, like that's probably the best thing. But yeah, after that, like I think the little stuff matters, and then actually having the confidence to like go into these places and really try and do it. I feel it comes back to my mindset, my travel mindset of like, you know, I'm looking for things that are going to get me out of my comfort zone, to put me in situations and rooms with people I've never interacted with, who are living like completely different lives. And I feel like those are the rooms where I learn the most about myself and about like the culture that I'm visiting. So that's been my kind of my goal, is like find as many different people living as many different lives as possible, and go like spend time with them, just see what they're about. And I think that's given me such an interesting perspective over the last year, from like, you know, if you've seen like all these different communities living in different ways, then that's one of the greatest like superpowers. If you I don't know, when you're problem solving, you learn how like so many different kinds of people that are like so different, even if they don't speak the language, you can kind of get the vibe from what's going on. So I don't know, those are the three things that I usually do for like confidence when I'm traveling in like weird spots. I don't know. What about you? Do you have any like I don't know. I have some follow-up questions for you, because you've also traveled like pretty significantly for 4 or 5 years, right? Uh,
That's right,
I don't, is
yeah.
that right? Yeah. So, what has been? Have you had some experiences like this? Do you share a similar mindset, or would you like disagree with any of this?
No, 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 no. I absolutely agree with you, and I was actually nodding when you were talking about it because I've seen this everywhere, and actually, I just wanted to add to that a lot of people actually um, don't get out of their comfort zone. So, especially people in the West would go into Western countries where there's, more touristy, and they would stay in nicer hotels and things like that, which is fine, but that is not really, what you and I are doing here. Which is throwing ourselves into the deep end. And I have exactly the same stories. People don't realize, like, okay, when you go out these um, touristy places, you get to see so much more, but people often feel that it's not very safe. And that's not necessarily the case. I mean, it hasn't been for me. I've been traveling for 4 or 5 years, and people are so humble, and people are so willing to help you, even if they don't know the language. They're just so happy that you've come from a distant foreign land and you've come to visit their country. And people generally are just, so, helping, in fact, you'll find that most bigger cities, touristy places, it's actually very unsafe compared to most of the remote rural places, which I find in my experience. So yeah, I mean, I've traveled for about 4 years. I absolutely share the same mindset. I just go in with openness and curiosity. And sometimes people don't speak the language, and you have to use a lot of hand gestures, and tell them what you want, which is fun. and funny at the same time. But it works, and people understand you, and it's definitely worked well for me.
I feel like for the first time, if someone's listening to this that's like really they're new travelers or like solo travelers that are wanting to go do stuff that's not like the normal backpacker route activities with everyone else who's doing them. I think the main like mindset shift to have is that I think we both share is after years and years of travel, you will realize that like people already, especially if you're visiting their small town or the place that they're from, they're like they want to show you a good time. Like they don't have this is probably like an interesting thing in their day that doesn't usually happen if you're actually finding good places. So, the mindset that it like almost everywhere is so safe, so safe compared to what all like everybody thinks that's been a key mindset for me. Like that's giving me so much confidence that I feel like we both have is like really it's not as hard as you think to make the jump to go weird spots.
Yeah, no, definitely. I would say the same. And I wanted to give an example of my friend Philip, who was telling me this crazy story. In fact, he should be here telling that story, but he was saying how he was motorbiking through Vietnam, and he was just doing the whole, south to north along the coast on the motorbike, and his motorbike broke down in the middle of the night in this village where it was just super sketchy. What it would appear would be super sketchy, super helpful, but he found a mechanic. Ultimately, by asking the locals, and they've even offered him a place to stay the night, and he repaired his bike, and he ended up staying for an extra couple of days because he loved it so much. And he was telling me, I don't remember if he was actually if this was the case, but he was saying like the locals were so sad to see him go. They in fact they were ready to like marry him into one of his their daughters and stuff, because they were just so happy that he was there. And it was such a crazy story. And then you think like, oh my god, the first thing you feel like, I'm in the middle of nowhere. My bike breaks down. My motorbike breaks down in the middle of midnight at night, and there's no one around. So what do you do?
As far as you were saying your friend biking through these little small towns, I feel like a good conversation to have in this would be like the impact that you leave on places that you visit is something that I think about a lot. That if you're like a really small percentage of a visitor that has visited some like weird place, the impact that you leave on that like matters so much more. I think about this a lot, especially when I'm visiting like small, like I was just in Laos in little small community towns, and some people who are making videos, like I'm doing a lot of videos when I'm doing this, and I really want to be the most like respectful as possible, where they don't think like, oh, look, this is some white guy who's gonna come in, like film us for content and then leave and like not even, that seems like such a slimy thing that actually happens a lot with content creators. Like they'll go in and then in reality, like they didn't really capture the culture of like the place that they were visiting. And so a lot of the stuff that I film and post, like I don't really speak on camera, which is a choice, like I for many reasons. But one of them, the benefits of that is that when I'm going like someone's house or they invite me for dinner, like this happened in India, someone invited me to their house for dinner and we just like ate there. It was amazing. And if I'm recording and like speaking like, hey, look at me, like I'm in this Indian like lady's house and we're having dinner on the floor. Here she is. It becomes like this weird from the business side of things, a weird like transactional interaction.
Mm.
Like that is so strange where, I'm trying to build a business through my videos and through social media stuff that you know, I don't want to like use people for content, which seems super like slimy, but at the same time, I want to have the most rich cultural experiences where I'm going and like self-growth that I can. So I don't know, it's kind of a weird balance that I think it's hard to do right, but especially needs to be thought about before doing some crazy stuff.
Yeah, it's important to be culturally sensitive. Is one of the things that I've realized when traveling, or reminded in this case. And you actually kind of got into a good segue for my next question, which is a lot about content creation, right? So you don't just travel for fun, right? You want to make something out of this. You want to be a digital content creator, to my understanding, and you want to make this kind of your full-time job. You are a photographer by background as well. You've recently hit 15K followers on your Instagram, and I think that's amazing. I've seen your reels, they're freaking good. No, that can't even explain it. So let's talk about that because, it's, it is, a lot of people want to do that, right? So like I was saying earlier, this podcast is a lot about, entrepreneurship. It's all about starting your own thing, being passionate about it, but having the right mindset, having the right tools and having the right things. What are your tricks to doing this? I can imagine it's very difficult to do while you're traveling. So you, on the one hand, you are planning your next trip, you're trying to visit these other places, you're trying to survive at the same time, but you're also filming this. And I can tell you from someone who's building a business and traveling, it is not easy. So what is your secret?
Yeah, it's funny you say survive. I think survive is the right word because I'm, you
Right.
know, there are times like my videos I'm trying to put out like my goal is kind of a video every day, and it doesn't necessarily mean I have to edit and post every day, but I can schedule things like that's a good place to be at. And I'm mostly focused on like short form vertical videos. So I don't know. I appreciate the kind words about my videos too. I put a lot of work in for like the editing side of things for my longer like episodes. So it takes uh, you saying survive brought this up because I trying to edit and film and focus on like business growth while you are having food poisoning in India on a bus with no bathroom is like, this is something that's happened to me. And I'm like, okay, you can't do it. Like you can't focus on business stuff like pro like productive thoughts when your physical environment is so horrible, like in certain scenarios. So I think I've realized that the start of the trip, I got the start of last year when I really began this. And I think this is good advice for anyone trying to get into travel content. You have to realize that you need a balanced like time schedule of how fast and slow you're going to travel versus how much you're going to work. And I say work because like it takes so much thought, and if you're actually doing it right, you should be thinking about the things that you're putting out. And to do that, you have to really like put time aside and sit down and like think about it. And so this means that like I have a really hard time being productive in weird spaces, which is like not a good problem to be having for myself for this lifestyle. But I think I'll go through periods of intense travel for a certain amount of time. Like in the past, it's been too long. Like I did almost 3 months in South America with little to no longer breaks. For this trip, it's been a lot better. Like I just took a month in Chiang Mai, Thailand, where we met, and that was way, way better. Like I was editing the whole month, got a lot of stuff done, but even then, I'm still posting from the time before. Because I think honestly, if you're doing it right, like it's hard, it's so hard, if not impossible, to post like live when you're going to these places if you're putting in a lot of work to make like a final product. So I don't know. Content creation is hard on the go. Uh, that's been some of my struggles with it. I don't know. You also are doing some things like this yourself too, right? Do you have any good strategies that I can learn from you because I'm in need of help in that department a little bit.
Yeah, I mean it's super personalized, right? What works for me might not work for you. As you know, I run a marketing automation agency and I also do podcasting as well. I would say putting some time aside is definitely the right thing. Slow travel. I personally I kind of plan things in my head, I would say, because I try to keep a kind of an open mind to it. But I know, for example, at my work, at my agency, I know that what are the months that are, that I can afford to travel because there's not much happening. For example, December and January, right? Because generally the last of our campaigns finish around end of November, and January is a time for a lot of companies to get together, strategize, plan for the remainder of the year, and they do the budgets. So I have got about two months and a half, probably like until mid February when things are kind of chill, and then I know that okay, mid February to about end of March, I'm going to be super busy because there's a lot of events happening and that our clients need us. So things like that. I know the periods of ups and downs, so I try to plan around that. The slow travel is very, very important as well. But right now when I have a lot of work to do, I would either settle down in one place and or go back home to my base, and then I would just hammer out like I have been. Like for the last 3 weeks, I have not stopped. Building, creating, leading, and it's been great. So now that I've done that, I can enjoy a little bit of time to go to the Digital Nomad Fest in Da Nang in Vietnam to enjoy a bit of R&I, meet people, and then go back. It is a little bit of a kind of a roller coaster. It goes up and down, it goes up and down. So that's generally my thing, and that's why I was curious when I was asking Alex about like you do it nonstop. So
Yeah.
doesn't it get tiring, and how do you manage it? Like I'm super curious to understand that.
So yeah, it does. It's interesting you mentioned the Nomad conference as well. Like we met in Chiang Mai at a digital nomad event, which was the first one I've attended. And you're asking about it getting tiring. It is so isolating at times where this past summer I took a break at home to do some like commercial videography and make money so I could keep going for now. But during that time, I was back in my hometown in St. Paul, Minnesota, in the US, and I basically like having friends that are also doing content and you can talk with about things is so huge. And I did not realize that before I really started getting into this, where, I'm going through like really niche problems where I'm trying to do stuff every day. If it's like, okay, like this certain editing thing is really like making my day horrible right now, and I just need to like vent about it to somebody. And there are people that actually understand and are doing the same. And so getting connected with other travelers or other content creators if you're trying to make stuff is so huge. I mean, I have now like a pretty good network of other travel creator friends that like it doesn't matter like how great their videos are as long as they're trying and trying to do the same and like putting in time. I feel like those conversations are some of the best conversations for my mental health, for my energy, for me like feeling energized to keep doing this because content is a nonstop game. Like there is no days off. Like I would love to have a short period of the year for 2 months where I don't have to do much. I mean, I'm sure that you still have to do a lot, but yeah, I don't know. I did recently take the first month off. I took one whole month off of posting, which is insane. I haven't done that in the past like probably 4 or 5 years of posting. That's the longest break I've taken. And so that was very insightful in some ways. But now I'm back to trying to get as much content out as possible. Uh, so yeah,
Yeah.
breaks sometimes help. Getting connected with other people sometimes helps. That's my main stuff.
I think it was important. It's important to mention that I have a whole team that also helps me, which I'll be lost without them, right? That's why I was so curious to understand how do you do that? Because I've got VAs, I've got two VAs. I also have my team who I rely on religiously for marketing, for editing stuff as well, for helping me with kind of the day to day. So it's not a one man game.
100% I'll be hiring as soon as I have the money to do it. I I've thought about this a lot. Like, what does the most efficient team look like for like a small content creator to go if I'm going to shoot and stuff? Like, I feel like a pair traveling together really works well, where someone's a really good editor, they stay back, and then if I'm going to film for the day, like sending this back. But I don't know, still scripting, making storylines is something that I feel like I can only do. So right now I'm just going solo, like for the time being. But yeah.
Have you considered doing AI and getting like an AI agent to help you out with things, including editing and stuff?
I have two agents right now that help me for this, but I think they're not like doing enough. I would like to have better ones. Right now I have a small business advisor, so like basically just for me trying to make money with content has been a long journey that's taken many twists and turns, but I've told the AI all of it. And so then like I've had some good productive conversations. I actually think that one's good. And then I write scripts for my longer videos, so of the different experiences that I'm having, so I don't make sure not to forget anything. And then I have a content like writing assistant. So I've uploaded my old scripts. It knows my style for the most part. but I would say there's still something missing. Like I don't know, there's still some sauce missing from that. And so I've still been writing my own scripts for now, but very, very soon AI is going to get good enough where I can actually use it for that. And then my process, like, I mean, talk about video editing too. Like, as soon as that happens for putting in B-roll over stuff that, like, if I make the script, I'm talking about all these things, and then the AI can put in B-roll that matches that I've filmed already. Oh my God, like my life will change. So, yeah, that's how I'm using AI for content though.
Great. Look, I've got two more questions and I'll let you go. One of it, which probably everyone wants to know, is you've mentioned earlier there was a cheap travel hack for airplanes for booking tickets.
Yes. Yes. So basically, if you want to book the cheapest airplane tickets, there's like one strategy that I feel like a lot of people don't know about already, where you can look for airports that I call like flight hubs. And I didn't necessarily come up with that, but flight hubs are cities that are linked between each other with really good flights in between that are cheap, that are all the time basically. And if you know which cities to look between for flights, they are so cheap, like way cheaper. So, for example, I'm in Mongolia in Ulaanbaatar, the capital, and flights from Ulaanbaatar out into the world are generally very, very expensive. It's expensive to get to Mongolia, but it's linked, it's a flight hub with Seoul, South Korea. So, like that is something that, you can kind of find it on, if you use Google Flights, you can use it on if you fly, you put the Anywhere tab, and then you can kind of search for places. But when you start to go for longer distances, so like I flew from Minnesota all the way to India for the start of this trip, it starts to become harder to find flight hubs between each other. And so that's one of the agents that I've made is how do you find the cities that are linked with each other the cheapest, where you can buy like multiple tickets going around the world for way cheaper. So, I mean, I flew from the US all the way to India for like $370. So that was a freaking crazy deal that, it was not, and it would have been very hard to just find only with Google Flights. But I think my ultimate goal for flight stuff is making an app or a web app or something that has live flight data with AI, where you can just say, hey, I'm going to India, find me as many, it doesn't matter how many connections, like let's go through and find me the flight hubs where these are the cheapest. That is the future of like finding cheap flights. But this is my strategy right now to find the best flights.
Patent pending for anyone who's watching or
Patent
listening.
pending. Don't steal my idea.
And Alex, this is a question that I ask most people on the podcast, and that is, your biggest advice, especially for people like you who are traveling right now. What is your one big piece of advice? Something that you've learned. It doesn't have to be one though. It can be many things, but something that you've learned that you wish you knew sooner, and you can, give insights to our audiences about traveling, creating content, and just just your journey in
Yeah.
general.
I think it comes to mind right away. Like my biggest advice to someone who's starting or interested in making videos while they go or taking photos, I think putting yourself in the right situation to win at this is huge. And so whether that means like I've showed up to tourism board offices and tour companies that I'm working with and going to film with, or whether that means like planning the adventure that's actually going to get you out of your comfort zone to go film something that's unique, like make your content actually stand out. That's like a huge thing, and I think putting yourself in those situations into the right rooms is probably my best advice. Like don't be afraid to do it. And I've had a lot of that fear from the past year or so, and now like literally today I went to go talk to Mongolia's tourism board to go see if they'll sponsor me to go out into the into the steppe, Mongolian steppe. So, things like that, like don't be afraid to fail. Like I had so many tour companies say no to working together. And now like, I mean, just a month or two ago, I worked with Bhutan's tourism board to go film for like 11 days in the country and go to like the remote mountains to find yaks. And so that content isn't out yet, but it's going to be coming out soon. And that was a crazy thing that happened only because I had enough confidence to feel like my videos are good enough for the tourism board of Bhutan and to go like pursue, try and find connections and make it happen. And like the only way that happened was from me still like sending emails even in like weird scenarios or getting things done and getting in the right spaces to do it. So yeah, I think that's my best advice. Like don't be afraid to do that. And uh, yeah,
Well, Alex, thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming on this podcast and sharing your knowledge and your stories. If you want to follow Alex, follow him on Instagram, Alex by Air. And I'll put some other links below in the comments so people can reach out to you. They just want to follow your crazy stories in these remote places that I like to call hidden gems.
thanks for having me so much. And yeah, Instagram's probably the best place to follow me. And I'm moving into doing some longer vertical Instagram videos of on my trip. So Bangladesh is coming soon, Bhutan content's coming soon, and then later when I catch up, I'll be posting about Mongolia too. So yeah,
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Alex.
yeah. Thanks for your time. See ya.